Hello, Heartland fans. Welcome, my YouTube audience. The unthinkable has happened. Amy Fleming, the heart and soul of Heartland, is at the center of a devastating twist in the shocking season finale. She has held everything together through love, loss, and an unbreakable bond with horses, but now her fate is hanging by a thread. This is the moment no one saw coming. A heartbreak that will change everything. The future of Heartland itself is on the line. Are you ready for the most heart-wrenching, game-changing moment in the show's history? Brace yourself, this is a ride you won't forget. The season began on a note of optimism. Amy Fleming had just achieved a major breakthrough in her career. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was truly making progress, working with some of the most challenging horses she had ever encountered. Heartland seemed more united than ever. The family was finding personal victories, and while Ty's memory still lingered in the air like a shadow, Amy seemed to be moving forward. She had become stronger with each passing day, slowly navigating life without him as the ranch continued to thrive. But beneath the surface, something was changing. The small, almost imperceptible shifts began to make Amy uneasy. It started with things she could explain away: a misplaced tool here, an unfamiliar unease in the horse's eyes there. Conversations with her family members began to carry an unexpected weight, and the once effortless interactions with her loved ones now felt strained. Amy tried to dismiss these feelings, but deep down, something didn't feel right. It wasn't just the usual stress of running Heartland and carrying the legacy of Ty Borden. This was different. The unease wasn't just in her own heart. Lou, once a pillar of support, had started to retreat into herself, her thoughts constantly elsewhere. Peter, too, seemed distant, as though there was something he wasn't sharing with her. Jack, the steady foundation of the family, was quieter than usual. He seemed to be staring off into the distance, as if he too could sense that something was amiss. Amy couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, a storm she wasn't prepared for, and neither was Heartland. Then, in the dead of night, the call came. It was urgent, filled with a sense of panic. Amy rushed to the phone, heart pounding, her mind already racing through all the possible scenarios. She didn't recognize the voice, but the words sent a chill down her spine. "You need to come to the ranch now. Something's wrong. It's about Ty." Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the legacy of Ty Borden, the very thing she had been trying to protect, was in jeopardy once again? Could it be an intruder, someone threatening her family's safety? Amy had to know. She grabbed her coat, dashed out of bed, and rushed to the ranch, her mind spiraling with fear. When she arrived, the ranch felt eerily quiet. The horses were uneasy, restless, the kind of unsettled energy Amy had never encountered before. The barn door stood ajar, and as Amy stepped inside, she was met with an unsettling sight: a single cryptic note pinned to the wall. The words burned into her mind: "The past can't stay buried." Her heart sank. The message wasn't just a warning, it was a sign that something much bigger, something far darker, was at play. Amy stood frozen, staring at the note, wondering what it meant. Was this a reminder of the past? A warning from a time she thought was long behind her? Or was it a harbinger of something more sinister to come? With no answers in sight, Amy couldn't help but feel the weight of everything pressing down on her. She was determined to face whatever was coming, to fight for her family, for Heartland. But she had no idea what that fight would cost her or who, if anyone, would survive the coming storm. Days had passed since Amy's unsettling discovery in the barn, yet the tension at Heartland only thickened. No matter how hard she tried to move on, an unshakable sense of unease lingered. It felt as though something unseen was closing in, wrapping around them like a tightening noose. She kept herself busy with the horses, clinging to the familiar rhythm of work. But nothing felt the same. The cryptic note haunted her, its chilling message echoing in her mind: "The past can't stay buried." Amy had always been Heartland's anchor, the one who held everything together. But now, the weight of it all pressed down on her. Her confidence, once unwavering, had begun to crack. Every creak of the floorboards, every cautious glance from those around her, felt like an unspoken warning, an omen of something lurking just beyond sight. The ranch, once her refuge, felt different now. The air had changed. The walls seemed to be closing in. She wasn't the only one who noticed. Lou, always the optimist, seemed preoccupied, her mind drifting elsewhere. Peter had grown distant, burdened by something he wouldn't or couldn't share. Even Jack, the family's steady rock, seemed troubled. His eyes often lingered on the horizon, as if sensing a storm no one else could see. One evening, as Amy walked through the barn, a sudden chill prickled her skin. The shadows stretched longer, the quiet felt heavier. She paused, her pulse quickening, her senses sharpening. Something was off. A faint rustling behind her made her spin around, heart hammering. Nothing, just the stillness of the barn, the gentle shifting of the horses. She exhaled, shaking her head. It's just the stress, she told herself. The weight of Ty's legacy, the expectations pressing down on her, it was all becoming too much. But no matter how hard she tried to dismiss it, the feeling remained. Everywhere she went, it followed the eerie sensation of unseen eyes watching, waiting. Something was out there. And sooner or later, it would reveal itself. The following morning, the unease deepened when Amy received another call. This time, the number was blocked. Her pulse quickened as she answered the phone, an instinctive sense of dread already taking hold. The voice on the other end was distorted, hollow, and cold, like someone trying to hide their true identity. Amy Fleming, the voice rasped. You think you've outrun the past, but it's catching up to you. The things you've buried, they're rising again. And this time, there's no escape. The line went dead before Amy could even react. She stood frozen, the phone clutched tightly in her hand. Who was this? What past were they referring to? And why did it feel so personal? Amy had no answers, only questions. She tried to brush it off as a cruel prank, but deep down, she knew better. This wasn't just a random threat. It was a warning one she couldn't ignore. For the rest of the day, Amy couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The ranch, which had always been her safe haven, now felt suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind outside made her jump. The horses, too, were restless, their usual calm demeanor replaced by nervous energy. Amy's connection with them had always been special, almost intuitive. But now, she felt that same unease reflected in their eyes. Lou, noticing Amy's growing agitation, tried to comfort her. But she seemed unsettled. You're not just imagining this, Amy said, her voice tinged with concern. Something's off. We all feel it. And then, just as things seemed to spiral further, Amy had a chance encounter that would change everything. It was late one evening when she decided to take a walk by the river, the place she always went when she needed clarity. But tonight, the air felt different, heavier, charged with something she couldn't name. As she stood at the water's edge, listening to the rush of the current, she suddenly felt the distinct sensation that she wasn't alone. She glanced around, her heart racing. And then from the shadows, a figure emerged. At first, Amy couldn't make out who it was. The figure was tall and shadowed, but there was something familiar about the shape. She squinted into the darkness, trying to make sense of it. And then, to her shock, she realized who it was. Caleb? She whispered, her breath catching in her throat. It had been years since she last saw him. Caleb, Ty's old friend, had been absent from their lives for so long that his sudden reappearance felt almost unreal. Yet there he was, standing across from her in the moonlit darkness by the river. He didn't speak at first, just stared at her, his face unreadable. Finally, he stepped forward, his pale complexion stark against the night, his wide eyes filled with something close to fear. I never thought I'd see you here again, Amy murmured, her voice laced with uncertainty. Caleb hesitated, his expression shifting between sadness and urgency. Amy, there's something you don't know. Something I should have told you a long time ago. They're coming for you. For the ranch. Amy's breath caught in her throat. Who? Who's coming for us? Before he could answer, the sudden screech of tires on the dirt road shattered the silence. Startled, Amy turned toward the sound, but when she glanced back, Caleb was gone, as if he had never been there at all. A chill ran down her spine. Had Caleb been trying to warn her? Who were they? And why had he disappeared so suddenly? One thing was certain: danger was coming, and she had no idea what form it would take. The next morning, Amy relayed Caleb's cryptic warning to Lou and Jack. The weight of his words pressed heavily on them, and even Jack, usually steady as a rock, seemed unsettled. "We've faced plenty over the years, Amy," Jack said gravely, "but this feels different. We need to find out who's behind this. And fast." He was right. There was no more time to waste. The storm wasn't just on the horizon, it was already closing in. Determined to find answers, Amy turned her attention to a stack of legal documents she had unearthed days earlier. Sitting at the kitchen table, she spread the yellowed pages before her, her fingers tracing over faded ink. They weren't just records of land disputes. They were something more, something sinister. As she sifted through the files, one name leapt out at her, freezing her in place. Oliver Rhodes. Her pulse pounded in her ears. That name had haunted her mother, Marian Fleming, for years. Amy had always known that Marian had secrets, but she had never understood the depth of them until now. Rhodes wasn't just a businessman. He was a man with a vendetta. His dealings were shrouded in corruption, intimidation, and ruthless ambition. He had spent years trying to seize control of Heartland and the surrounding land. And now it seemed he wasn't finished. Amy's fingers tightened around the fragile paper. The pieces of the past were finally falling into place, and the picture they painted was darker than she had ever imagined. Her mother had been caught in a web of deception, trusting the wrong people, making dangerous choices. And now, those consequences had returned, knocking at Amy's door. But Amy wasn't just going to stand by and let history repeat itself. She had a ranch to protect, a family to stand by, and a mystery to unravel. The danger was closer than ever, and if she didn't act soon, she might lose everything. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. Jack, ever the protector, had been trying to keep a cool head as Amy worked through the documents. But when he saw the depth of what she had uncovered, his face grew grim. "This isn't just about us anymore, Amy. This goes back a long way. The past has a way of coming back, and it's coming for us now." Amy nodded, her throat tight with the weight of the revelations. "What do we do, Jack? How do we fight this?" "We fight with everything we have," he said firmly. "We'll get to the bottom of this together. But we need to be careful. Rhodes is dangerous, and we don't know who else is involved." The next few days were a blur of frantic research, phone calls, and meetings with local law enforcement. Everyone involved in Heartland's history seemed to have their own secrets, their own part in the puzzle. And slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. Amy and Jack learned that Rhodes had once had a significant stake in Heartland's development, but his involvement had been masked by layers of deceit. He'd been using legal loopholes to manipulate situations, creating a network of allies and enemies in his wake. And now it seemed that he was preparing to make his move. The discovery of a long-hidden battle over the ranch's ownership came as a chilling shock. Amy had always known that the ranch was important, a place that had been passed down through generations, a symbol of her mother's legacy. But she had never fully understood just how much it was worth to others. It wasn't just a piece of land, it was a pawn in a much larger game. And now, the stakes had never been higher. In a moment of clarity, Amy realized that the ranch, her family, and her very survival were all on the line. All of it was linked to the decisions Marian had made decades ago. The past wasn't just a series of mistakes, it was a chain of events that had set everything in motion. And now, the storm was coming, Amy was at its center. The tension around Heartland grew with each passing day. Everyone seemed on edge, their nerves frayed by the constant unease that had taken over the ranch. The horses were more restless than ever, and even the usually calm animals seemed to sense the danger closing in. Amy couldn't help but feel that the danger wasn't just outside, it was already inside, slowly infiltrating the very core of everything she had fought to protect. Then came the final sign, the one that made everything so much clearer. Late one night, as Amy was leaving the stables, she saw a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the ranch, just beyond the tree line. Her heart raced as she instinctively reached for her phone, but before she could make a move, the figure stepped forward into the moonlight and she froze. It was Albert, Oliver's estranged brother. Amy's breath caught in her throat. She had heard whispers about Albert, a man who had stayed out of the family's dealings, always keeping his distance from the darkness that surrounded his brother. But here he was, standing in front of her, his face expressionless, his eyes filled with something she couldn't quite place. "Albert," Amy said, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't speak at first, just stared at her with a look that seemed to pierce right through her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke, his voice low and urgent. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Amy. Your mother thought she could escape it, but there's no escaping the past. Oliver is coming for everything she built, and it's not just the land he wants, it's the legacy. It's you." Amy's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling. Albert's gaze hardened. "You're the final piece of the puzzle. You don't know it yet, but you're part of something much bigger than yourself. And if you don't act fast, there won't be a Heartland left to protect." His words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Amy didn't know what to believe, but one thing was certain: the past wasn't done with her, and the stakes were higher than she could have ever imagined. The battle for Heartland was no longer just about land. It was about survival, and Amy was running out of time. The days after Albert's cryptic warning blurred together, each one heavier than the last. Amy couldn't shake the sense of impending doom that had settled over her like a dark cloud. She was no longer just concerned for the future of Heartland, her entire existence now felt tied to the dangerous game Oliver was playing. It wasn't just about the ranch anymore. It wasn't even just about the family. Amy realized with growing dread that her very life was at risk. The web that had been spun over the years was tightening around her, and there was no way out. Everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat. Even the horses, the animals she had spent her entire life working with, were acting differently, more skittish, uneasy. It was as if they, too, could sense the storm that was coming. The usually calm atmosphere of Heartland was gone, replaced by a palpable tension that hung in the air. Amy had spent her whole life protecting this place, but now she wasn't sure if it was enough. Oliver was unpredictable, dangerous, and worse yet, he had been lurking in the shadows for years, patiently waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment had arrived. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Amy found herself standing at the edge of the ranch, looking out over the land. The horses grazed peacefully in the distance, unaware of the chaos that was about to unfold. The wind picked up, carrying with it a strange sense of finality. Amy couldn't help but think back to Albert's words. It's not just the land he wants. It's the legacy. It's you. Amy's breath hitched. What did he mean by that? What did Oliver want with her? And why was he so determined to dismantle everything her family had built? She thought of Marian, her mother's quiet strength, the sacrifices she had made, the choices that had shaped Heartland into what it was. Marian had always shielded Amy from the shadows of the past, but now those very shadows were creeping in, threatening to consume everything. What had Marian been hiding all those years ago? What secrets lay buried in Heartland's history that had led them to this moment? The more Amy dwelled on it, the more uncertain she became. One thing was clear: she couldn't fight this battle alone. But who could she truly trust? Jack? Lou? Caleb? They had always stood by her, but what if one of them, unknowingly or not, was caught in Oliver's tangled web? What if he had already struck from within? Amy clenched her fists. She couldn't afford to wait any longer. It was time to act. The first step was Lou. If anyone could help her make sense of this, it was her sister. Lou had always been the backbone of their family, the one who held everything together when the world seemed to be falling apart. Amy needed her now more than ever. As she made her way toward the house, her phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out, her stomach twisting as she read the message on the screen. Get out. It's already too late. Caleb. Amy's pulse pounded in her ears. What did he mean? Had Oliver already made his move? Was Heartland beyond saving? Panic threatened to take hold, but she forced it down. She couldn't let fear win. She had to face whatever was coming. Steeling herself, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. Lou was already there, sitting at the kitchen table, her expression a mix of concern and confusion. Amy, what is going on? Lou's voice was tight with worry. I'm getting messages too, but no one is giving me any real answers. And you've been acting strange for days now. What aren't you telling me? Amy hesitated for only a moment before pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. It's Oliver. He's not just after Heartland, he's after me. And I think this has been in motion for a long time. Lou's eyes widened. What? Amy? That doesn't make any sense. It does. Amy swallowed hard. I think Oliver has been orchestrating this from the start. He's been pulling strings, manipulating people, setting things in motion. And now he's closing in. It's not just about the land anymore, it's about me. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken fears. Lou's face paled. But why? Why you? What does he want? Amy shook her head. I don't know. But I think it has something to do with Mom. I've been looking through old records, and Oliver's name keeps coming up in every shady deal, every legal loophole, every threat against this ranch. It always leads back to him. Lou exhaled shakily, absorbing the weight of Amy's words. Finally, she met Amy's gaze, determination flickering in her eyes. Then we fight back, together.